Okay, so we got just a couple of us here for right now. So before we really this is a Q&A. So just to get started, whether you want to come off mute or if you just want to be in the chat, because this is obviously being recorded, so you can, there'll be a replay available. So, but if you have any questions to get us started on mediumship or haunting stuff, let her rip. Hi. So far there's just a couple of us. So do either of you have any questions before I get into any kind of teaching or anything like that?
What's the difference between a psychic and a medium? Okay,
so a psychic and a medium they work hand in hand, but with a psychic, oh, hello. Okay. So with a psychic, you're really just going off of those extrasensory senses, right? Those 5 or those 4 clairs. Yeah, the 4 clairs. So that's when you're really looking at, and you're picking up, sometimes you'll pick up on things like, I lost the word. So, well, we'll focus on the 4 clairs for now. So you have your clairaudient, your clairvoyance, your clairsentience, and your, I forgot to write it down. Claire, what's the other one?
No.
There's a 4th clair. Sentience and Claire. Dang it. I forgot to write it down.
Sentience?
Yeah. So we have those clairs, and then you can get into being able to pick up on timelines. And so this is where you can pick up on future events or being able to predict things, is when you're looking at timelines. So, and with a medium, you're still using all of those clairs, but you're also speaking with those who are not in a physical body. So this could be an earthbound spirit, a crossed over spirit, either your angels, your guides, non-human entities, which I can get into. But yeah, the medium is really more about speaking or communicating with those who are not in a physical body, whereas the psychic is able to tap into those extrasensory abilities, specifically in those clairs, or being able to foresee future events and timelines.
Thank you.
Okay. Hopefully that was clear, even though I forgot the 1 clair. If I don't write them down, they go right out of my head. Did you have any other questions, again, about mediumship or haunting stuff before I really get into any kind of teaching? They said you can come off mute or put it in the chat. No, okay. So for right now, so we'll get in. Oh, we got Tamika coming in. Maybe she'll have some questions. She's connecting in. So I'll just give her a sec to connect in before I move forward. She might have a question or two. Well, I suppose I'll ask then, what interested you in coming into today's call then? I'm just curious. Was it just something that you were like, oh, this is an interesting topic, or was there something specific you wanted me to talk about?
Oh no, I run in Tamika's circles.
Okay. So Tamika, if you're around, do you have any questions before I go any further? You can put in the chat or come off mute.
No, you forgot to remind me today. You know, I kept talking about tomorrow. I forgot about tonight.
Oh, sorry about that, because we have a class tomorrow too on awakening stuff. So
don't worry, I'm gonna get some ideas and I'll throw them at you.
Okay. Okay, so let's get into some teaching stuff then. So when it comes to mediumship, like I said, we're tapping into those clairs. So this is really about being able to, if we're going to look into actual communication, like mediumship type of communication, where we're speaking with a non-embodied entity, because it could be human, could be non-human, right? So if we're looking to do that, that's when we're really going to be, we want to tap into our awareness of those psychic abilities and being able to, especially really lean in on the ones that you already know are very strong. I mean, we want to build up those muscles, and you will with practice. Again, as I mentioned with in the psychic class, it's really about practice. So, and you want to be safe while we're doing this, and we'll get into that, but we really want to tap into those abilities that we already really have a strong muscle in, or we were trying to build that muscle, but it's really being aware of that, making sure that you have that third eye open. And we did that third eye activation in the psychic class. And there's other ways of doing it too. So you can do like meditation where you're doing like a one pointed meditation to kind of to open that up and build that up, or you can do the chant, the Om chant, to open that up. Excuse me. So what we're really looking at is being aware of that. And so you can also, what do I want to say? There are meditations you can do, but for me personally, it's not something I've really had to do a lot because it was an ability that was already kind of there. We have all of these abilities, but like I said before, some are stronger than others, like right out the gate, right? Like you might be, very naturally clairaudient like I am. You might be very high with the mediumship. You might be very, clairvoyant, where you're getting the visions. So they come in different levels, right? And so with me, mediumship was something that was already there at like that muscle was already very strong. And we typically bring this in with childhood. So in childhood, that ability is typically anyways, very strong just from childhood, because we're so close to having been on that side of the veil, right? We have already been so close to that, and we haven't built up all of these veils, because that's really what brings down that ability, or really any of our abilities. So we come into this world and we have these abilities, right? We're already kind of that high vibe. We already have these abilities. And then the world comes in and veils and veils and veils, right? And so unless you have somebody who is able to let you know, who is telling you these things are real, not in a scary way, right? We don't want to scare the children, okay? But if you have someone who's able to tell you, no, you're not crazy, or this is how you can continue to build that muscle, right? Or maintain that muscle. But more often than not, that ability just gets buried, and we'll be told, there's no monster under your bed. There's no monster in your closet, right? Because you don't want to scare the children. But at the same time, when we do that, when we're being told that as children, we're being told not to trust our own intuition, and then we bury it and we bury it. Okay. And so we really, part of building that muscle and any psychic ability, specifically for this class, mediumship, is being able to remove those veils, and being able to trust yourself again, and trust your intuition, and trust what you're getting. Because a lot of times too, because we've been told, if you hear voices, you're crazy, right? Or if you're seeing visions, that's just your imagination, right? We get all of these outside things telling us you're wrong, and we buy it. And then we sell it. Oh, I'm not psychic, right? How many times have you maybe heard that, right? Oh, I'm not psychic. Everyone has psychic abilities. We just bury it, or we're told we're wrong. So part of building up that mediumship muscle, or really building any psychic muscle, is removing those veils and learning how to trust yourself. That's a big one. So at the same time, you do have to have discernment. So not adding story when you're receiving a message, or when you're feeling something, right? So for me, like I said, I'm very clairaudient. So I have to make sure that what I'm receiving, and this is, to be clear, this is not something you're hearing audibly. You're going to hear it as a voice in your head, and it may or may not be your voice. And so you really have to have that discernment, though, to know, okay, now you're only probably going to get a few words, like 1 or 2, maybe 3 words, because it comes down to frequency. All of this is energy. Everything is energy. Even the things we think are material and solid, it's all energy, just vibrating at different rates. And it's the same with tuning into any psychic ability. And specifically, if you're tuning in as for mediumship stuff and tuning into a disembodied, if you will, entity. So it's really about being able to line up with their frequency. So sometimes, and that it happens to me even now, and I've been doing this literally my entire life, you'll be quiet, because that's really another thing, is just kind of trying to quiet the mind and not try to force anything. As I mentioned before in the psychic class, we don't force anything. It's really just about being and trying to be and just listening in or focusing in, right? We're focusing in on that frequency and we're allowing that to come through. And like I said, you may, and it depends on what your stronger abilities are, and they may build up as you practice. And so, like I said, for me, it's a lot more clairvoyant and clairaudient. So I'll hear a few words, but they may come in static. And at times I'm not going to hear anything. For some reason, sometimes we're just not, those frequencies are just not able to line up, and you're not going to hear anything, or you might not receive anything. But we also, like I said before, we want to have that discernment as well. So being able to discern between, is that a message I'm receiving, or is that, you know, my own voice coming through, my own ego trying to add something in, especially if you're doing a reading for someone else. I've had that moment of like sheer panic when I'm not able to sync up. And I'm like, oh no, they want a message, right? My client wants to hear something, and I'm just not picking it up, right? And so you have to make sure that you don't panic and just tell them what they want to hear. Never do that. That's, you know, you're not serving anybody in that case. Okay, so, and to be able to line up with those frequencies, like I said, it's about making sure that third eye is open, however you want to do it, meditation, chanting, what have you, okay? So it can even just be a matter of sometimes just focusing on that brow, on that third eye. You might, you know, visualize it opening up, or you might just be just focusing your energy on that, like focusing your attention on that area will cause it to activate. And so we're really trying to open that up, and then we just get kind of quiet and receive, right? So for me, often it's a listening thing, or I'll view something, and we're just trying to line up with that frequency. Okay, I know I tend to go fast. I'm trying my very best to be grounded and not go as fast as I did last time. So I just want to make sure, is everybody, am I going too fast? Do you have any questions? No, just, you know, if you want to come, no, perfect. Okay. So like I said, we also really want to be careful. We don't want to just let anybody in, okay? Because that's also what you're doing. It's a form of channeling. So you don't want to let just anybody walk in, right? So you're not trying to let anybody, and I don't recommend, I personally do not like it, and I put up a boundary. So we also want to mention that too. You want to make sure that you have strong boundaries when you're doing this type of work, to make sure that nothing just comes in that just wants to come in, that, oh, it's an open vessel, just jump in. That's gonna cause all kinds of trouble, okay? Especially if it's a non-human entity, which I will get into, because those are incredibly dangerous. So now if you're trying to communicate with your own guides or your angels, you want to match up with that frequency. So first, you might want to call them in, but you want to make sure that you're doing it with these set boundaries. So you're making sure you're saying something to the effect. So it might be a prayer, right? Or it might just be an intention, but you're making sure that you're setting that boundary and saying only these ones can come in. I will only receive messages from, you know, positive, helpful spirits, my positive spirit guides, right? My helpful guides, or, you know, maybe a specific angel or archangel, or if you're trying to call them all in, right? Making sure that you're very clear about who you want to communicate with. And if it is just a earthbound spirit, making sure that, again, you have your boundaries set. You cannot step into my body. You cannot use my body. That's what I do. I don't like that. Some people do. Some people will do automatic writing, and I dabbled with automatic writing. I don't like it. So I set that boundary. You cannot use my body. You can communicate with me, but you do not get to use my body. It makes me incredibly uncomfortable. And plus you get some entities that will mask being a human entity, being a human spirit, and then, oh my gosh, and then the floodgates, and then it's just, oh, Tamika, did you raise your hand?
Yes, I was gonna let you finish though.
Okay. I forget where I was going. So what was your question?
So you was talking about them using your body in the automatic writing. I didn't know that's what that meant. I thought that the stuff just come to you. So it's those spirits come to you to write or do whatever that is.
Yeah, so there's automatic, because with automatic writing, you're kind of turning your mind off, right? Because we're just trying to let them speak. So you're turning your mind off and you're allowing them to use your hand to write. So they're able to, they might stick their, I don't know, their energy hand into your hand and start writing. And it's really, I don't enjoy it. So, but you're meant to turn your mind off and just kind of let them go. And it usually looks like scribbles. And sometimes you might be able to make out words. But like I said, I don't have a great deal of experience, because when I did do it, I didn't like it. And I was like, okay, boundaries. No more automatic writing for me. I don't enjoy that. I like having the control of my body and my vessel. Boundary set. So for some other people, they may have a different technique for automatic writing. That's the one I learned, and I did not like it. I hope that answered your question. Yeah, so what else did I want to? I did put up some. Okay, so as I was mentioning about, so there are different types of spirits, and not all of them are human. So we have an earthbound spirit, and that's where you're going to get your typical stereotypical haunting. It's an earthbound spirit. So that's a spirit who has not quote unquote crossed over, right? They haven't gone back into either, they haven't gone into the light, they haven't gone back into that collective consciousness, or heaven, whatever term you want to give it. They haven't crossed over, gone through the Bardos again. They're still here, and they're still in their ego mind. So that's a big one, is that with a human earthbound spirit, chances are they either chose to stay here because they like it. I have I have a grandfather who is still haunting his garage because that's where he worked. He did furniture stuff. Like he made furniture, and that was like his sanctuary. Nobody messed with him when he was in his garage because he was working, and that was where his bliss was, right? I'm very much like him in the sense that I really like my alone time, right? I don't like having a lot of people come in chatting at me and all that. I like my alone time. I like to be able to go off on my own and create. That's my happy place, right? I mean, apart from doing like these courses, these classes, I love doing these. So, and that was his happy place, and he chose to stay there. I went to him and asked, do you want help? I knew he was there, and I asked, do you want help crossing over? He said no. He was happy there. And so, is this the same as when your family checks in on you? That is actually, chances are, if they're just coming in to check on you, they have crossed over. So they're in the light, they're in heaven, whatever your terminology is for it. They've gone back. They haven't gone through the Bardos yet, but they are, they've crossed over. They're not earthbound. They're just coming in, checking on you. Sometimes they'll come through with messages of guidance and support. But an earthbound haunting is when they are, typically it's on the grounds. It's not even the house or the space itself. The haunting is going to be on the ground. So they'll be attached to the ground. So even if you knocked over the building, they'd still be there because they're attached to the property. So those are, but you have the ones that choose it, like my grandfather. And then you have the ones who don't know they've passed. which is heartbreaking. And I always hate having to break that to them, that they have passed. And then you have the ones who are tied here through trauma. That's going to be, that's pretty much the number one, is trauma. That keeps people here because they're still, even if they've chosen. So what happens if they stay too long? Will he not reincarnate? It's his choice. He gets to stay there as long as he wants. It's his choice. You cannot force somebody to cross over. You can, and I'll go through it. We have tools for being able to clear out certain energies. But if a spirit is tied to the grounds, you cannot force them. That it has to be their choice. Okay, so because I go too fast and now I got to catch up to what I was saying. Right, so then you have the ones that have the trauma, and those are the ones that if you want to help them cross over, well, one, you can now offer it. You can just, say, hey, I'm going to open a door, and I can tell you how to do that in a minute. But you can either open the door. This is kind of like a portal. You're opening a portal, but you're doing it to the light. Okay, and there are different types of portals. So, and then being able to close that down after. But if they have trauma, typically, because they are still in the ego identity, even though they don't have a body anymore, they still ego identify as who they were when they passed. And so if they still have trauma, that will keep them stuck here because they haven't done the healing work to be able to let go and move on. And so you have, and then you have your crossed over spirits. So those are the ones who are, they're in the light, they're in the collective consciousness. And they're the ones who can come back and check in on you and support you. They can be your spirit guides. So they're just kind of with you. They're not earthbound, but they are with you, right? Okay, what else was there? Okay. Oh, right. So, and then you have, with these particular spirits, the ones that are earthbound, you can also just ask them what they need. So you might not want to just go in and be like, hey, I'm a counselor, right? What, how can I help you cross over, right? Like in the sense of, okay, let's do some therapy time, right? If you passed over because you had depression and completed suicide, let's dive into that, right? If you're not a certified, counselor or what have you, I wouldn't recommend doing that. But sometimes they'll ask for like peculiar things that you would not expect. That they're like, sometimes it's just a matter of, I need to pass this message on to somebody. So if they're earthbound, and they might just be like, I needed to tell this person this message, right? I needed to tell them that I love them, or find the money in this safe, or right. So we here having to heal humans and ghosts. It depends on if you want to do that kind of work, right? As a medium, that's something that's a service I offer, right? So you don't have to, you can just communicate. You can set that boundary and say, I'm just here to communicate and pass on a message, right? You can set those boundaries. If you don't want to be someone who's going in and doing that healing work with them, you don't have to. Just set that boundary, say that's not what I'm here for. So yeah, you can just ask them, what do you need? Because sometimes it will be a matter of, I just need you to open a portal, get me out of here, because I've had that. So what if they have done something evil and are afraid to pass over? Yeah, and so that's again where they kind of need to do some healing work and forgiveness work themselves. Because there's, it depends too on, okay, how do I want to say this? Some of them, if they've done something evil and they don't feel remorse about it, chances are you're going to have a malevolent spirit. And that's when you're going to need to start using tools because I guess you can't force them to cross over, but you can set a boundary and force them sort of out and put up tools and protection to keep something out. I will get to that though. But if it's something where they did something that was evil, or that they themselves just view as evil. That's, you know, in line with their values. And they said, I did something really bad and I feel bad. I feel remorse. I don't deserve to cross over. Again, that's when they're going to need to do some healing work. They're going to need to learn how to do that forgiveness. And if that's not something that you are either certified to do or feel comfortable doing, you know, working through that with them, then you have to set up that boundary and say, that's not what I'm here for, unfortunately. Okay. So yeah, so like I say, you want to tap into, and it depends on how, to go back a little bit about being able to line up with them. So we had mentioned in the psychic class about resonance fields. And so this is also where that's going to come in with this resonance field. So you may also feel what they're feeling, right? And not necessarily, I mean, yes, empathically, but also in the sense of their energy. If they have an icky energy, like just that ick, you know, just like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, right? That doesn't feel good to me, right? You're picking up on a resonance field. And in order to communicate with certain spirits, and human or non-human, you're going to pick up on their resonance field. So this is really where you're going to start to get that communication rolling. That's when you get that really going, is when you're picking up on the resonance field. So you may feel that they're, you know, they're just like, I'm just here to give a message. You might feel that desperate energy to, I just need to tell somebody this. And I've had that. You feel their feeling. You feel like, I am desperate. I need to get this out. Sometimes it's a matter of help me, right? I've gotten that so many times where I walked into a space and just gotten that desperate energy of, I need help. Or you might pick up on, you know, maybe they're angry, or they were depressed, or, you know, like, so you're going to line up with their resonance field. And that way you're going to start to get those messages in. You're either going to feel it, you're going to hear it, you're going to see it, right? You're going to have just that knowing of what they want to get across, okay? And you might even, as like I said, sometimes you get some peculiar ones. So you might even notice, don't ignore your regular senses, right? So sometimes you're going to pick up on smells, you're going to pick up on tastes, you might get a physical sensation. I had one, well, I've had more than one, but one that really comes to mind is I had one spirit come through who had completed suicide, but he had done it through, he had overdosed, he intentionally overdosed. And I didn't know this beforehand, because when I go into a reading, I don't want to know. I don't want my ego to be clouded, right? I just want to pick up on my senses, right? I'll ask somebody to confirm, I'll be like, oh, I'm feeling this. And they can say yes or no, but I don't want to go in with preconceived notions, because that's going to mess up your reading. So I felt like just like this nausea, and I was just like, oh, my heart's just pounding. And I just felt like, you know, this like, feeling in my esophagus kind of thing. I was like, oh, I nauseous my heart. And that's when she said, yeah, he had overdosed. So don't ignore your regular senses either for your psychic ones. You really want to be aware of all of those fields. Your, you know, the physical, the, you know, the energetic, all of that stuff, because they'll come through that way too. That's where you get a lot of people who'll be like, I smell my grandma's perfume, right? That's them coming through, and that they may or may not be earthbound, just if you pick up on any of these things. Just because you smell your grandma's perfume doesn't mean they're earthbound. It just means they've come into your energy field. Okay. Okay, so now we'll get into some non-human stuff. Or do you need me to slow down? Do you have any questions before I actually move on? No? Okay. So now we're going to get into the non-human. And so these are typically your, so you're going to have your demons, your elementals, your multidimensionals, your ultra-terrestrials, okay? And, you know, your imps, all that stuff. So these are the non-human, and they are typically not pleasant. They can be fun. You can have your fae come in and they can be helpful. Depends on the entity. So in my experience, fae are little tricksters, but some have had pleasant experiences with them. So same with imps and whatnot. They're usually little tricksters. They don't necessarily mean to cause harm, like in the demonic sense of like, I'm here for your soul, right? It's more of a I thought that was funny, right? But they're usually like mean little pranks, right? And more often than not, it can be because you went into their territory, and their elementals are incredibly territorial. So if they feel like you went into their space, yeah, and they're poltergeist, yes, absolutely. And so if you go into their space, they're going to retaliate, right? And they're going to try and get you out of there. That's when they'll maybe try to cause you some harm and try to mislead you in places and all that. So with poltergeist, because that was one I meant to bring up. Poltergeist, well, there are two kinds of poltergeist. There's poltergeist activity, and then there's a poltergeist entity. So poltergeist, there it goes. I went too fast again. So poltergeist activity, poltergeist is typically known as the noisy ghost, right? The poltergeist activity is when you're going to have things move. That's really what they do. They'll move your stuff around. They'll often stack things. They'll move things around. So you'll find things will disappear, right? You put something down and poof, it's gone, or poof, it appears somewhere else, right? So they're moving things. They'll typically move things. They can attack you, but this is where the sort of entity, if you will, of it comes in. But poltergeist activity is really just moving stuff around and making things appear and disappear, stacking. Okay, so now if you have a poltergeist entity, this is where this is more often than not, they're going to target the person who created the entity. Okay, and so when you have a poltergeist, it's more often than not going to be, it seems stereotypical, but it's for a reason. It's going to be more around the, what do I want? Like the preteen, those who are going into puberty, because they're expending a lot of energy. There's a lot of like chaotic energy going on there, and they will create, unconsciously, they will create a poltergeist. And this is the same really with anyone who is experiencing a great deal of upheaval and chaos in their life. You will create, unintentionally, but you will create a poltergeist. And that's when you will very likely get attacked. Okay. And so, and that's when they can be really, really horrific, depending on how cruel you are to yourself. That's been my experience when you've created a poltergeist. So, and it can also be based on trauma. So let's say you experienced a great deal of, say, sexual trauma in your childhood, and that was never cleared, and you're still in that chaos energy, and maybe even something triggered it recently, and suddenly now you have this poltergeist, and now they're going to attack you sexually. So that's when you're going to have to know the difference between a poltergeist that's sexually attacking you, and something that's a demonic, that's going to be your incubus and your succubus. Those are different. Those are demonic type of entities. Okay, so a poltergeist attack, though, is really going to attack you in the way that you are either consciously, subconsciously, or unconsciously cruel to yourself. Any of that unhealed crap, and anytime you're really kind of mean to yourself, it's going to attack you. So it may scratch you, it may bite you, it may burn you, it may push you, right? They are very physical in that sense. Poltergeists are very physical in their attacks, and when they're moving things and stacking things. Okay. Going too fast again. Catch your breath, Lizzie. Okay. So now you also have your, before I guess I move on to like demonics and what have you, do you have any questions? Did I go too fast again?
Did you talk about the rescue spirit?
About which, sorry?
I think I looked it up before about the rescue spirit.
The rescue spirit?
Yeah, where is that the one you was talking about with the trauma?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so if you have that trauma, so you yeah, if you need to help that earthbound spirit, yeah, those are going to be like your rescues, or you have your guides that are going to come in and help you out if that's what you need. Is that what you meant?
Well, I think when I read it, it was saying that if these rescue spirits attach to you, it'll put you down in like 2 to 3 days. Like it can really make you sick to a point of like you're in the bed, like whatever trauma they went through, it's on you now.
Okay, well, in my experience, because that's all I can speak to is my experience, you, like I said, you can resonate with a spirit, so you can feel that if they were really depressed or really angry, any of that sort of low vibe type of energy, right? More of attachment. You can have human attachments, and that's really when that's when a cord is going to be created through that resonance field. So a cord, and I'm going to be getting into this more in tomorrow's class with the accelerated awakening, but a cord has, that's when you have a connection with somebody, and it's going to have a story and or a theme to it. But, you know, it's like when you feel, so if you really say connect with this spirit, when you're like, yeah, I know what it's like to have depression, right? You can create a cord there because now you have a connection there. You have an understanding. Now an attachment a human attachment can really, can drain you, but they make you not feel so good. But it's more the demonic that's going to do that, in my experience. Somebody else might have a different one, but in my experience, the attachments you really have to look out for, because humans, you can, again, you've got to set that boundary. So you have to make sure that if you find that there is a cord, you have to know how to pull it out, not cut it, you pull it out. But again, I'll get into that tomorrow. So you got to pull that out, or you can burn it off. You can call on Archangel Michael to remove it for you and cut it. Like he'll take it out with his sword. It's like a ray. It's almost like a lightsaber. That's how I see it anyways. But it's like a blue lightsaber almost, and he comes in and he removes that for you, or he'll punch it through. I've seen that too. Ooh, that was violent when I saw that. This person I know had a demonic attachment, and nothing I did, and I tried and tried, and this is something that you'll find too with demonics, is it is so difficult to remove a demonic, especially if it feels like, or you've given it any kind of permission. Good luck getting rid of it. So in this case, though, I happened to astral travel. I did everything I could to remove this thing, and I don't know, to this day, I don't know what triggered it. So I astral traveled to this person's house, and I saw what looked like a tear in reality, a hand come through, like it punched into that person's body, like with force, like it was punched and ripped this thing out. And I saw this black, icky, shadowy, blah thing get ripped violently out of the person, out of their back. And then it went through that tear in reality. That's the only way I can describe it anyways. And then that closed up, and boom, entity gone. And for me, even though I didn't see Archangel Michael come through, that for me, that's who that was. And I don't know why at that time, because at that time I hadn't done anything. I talked to the person, they hadn't done anything, like they weren't specifically calling out or anything. They were asleep. They didn't even know this happened until I talked to them the next day. It was like, I saw this thing, it was so violent, are you okay? And they were sore. They did physically feel it. They were like, oh, I was wondering what that pain was, because it felt like they had been punched. And so they had some soreness from that. So with the demonics though, because these are so dangerous, and this is why you need to make sure you have those boundaries up, to make sure that these things don't come in. Because when you have just an opening, right, you're just like, oh, just invite anybody who wants to come through. Oh, Nelly, anything and everything will come through if you do that. You have to make sure you have your boundaries. This is who I'm going to talk to. This is who's allowed in. Everyone else needs to, pardon my language, fuck right off. right? You need to have that boundary set, okay, and make sure that that's there. And it might be something, a muscle that you have to build over time, because again, this is all stuff you will, if you want to get into the mediumship game, right, that you're going to need to practice it. Or even if you just want to practice your psychic abilities, right, and strengthen those abilities, practice, 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 okay. And a lot of that really does come down to making sure you're aware of your energy body and your physical body. You need to be very in tune in order to strengthen those muscles and to trust yourself, right? So when you hear something come through, so I know I'm veering off a little bit from the demonics, but when you hear something come through, right, it might be a word or two, right? It might be a yes or a no, or you know, just a couple of words, because it's like tuning the radio. I mentioned that in the psychic class, because it's frequency. You're tuning into a frequency, and so it's going to come through like a radio. Some connections are going to be stronger. You're going to hit that frequency, and you're just going to connect, and you're just going to get that radio straight through, and that's when you're going to, you know, get more information coming through, you know, audience, or that's where I get my movies. I call them my movies in my mind. Where you get really strong feelings, all of that stuff. It's just, that's when you connect, you happen to just hit the right frequency. And a lot of that too, like I said, is that resonance. So if you want to speak only with high vibe entities, you have to be high vibe. You have to be able to match their frequency. Okay. And if you're looking for something that's a little more earthbound, right? You're going in and you're going to talk with an earthbound spirit. You have to match them where they're at. And I don't mean, you know, be in a depressed state of mind or any of that. It's just being able to connect on that human level, okay? And have those boundaries in place to be able to tell them, for me anyways, I say, you cannot use my body. I do not want you channeling through my body. I don't like that. And I've had to tell people that, like tell spirits, that's a no. They've tried, right? And said, no, 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 that's not okay. You can talk to me, you can show me, you can feel, I can feel, you don't get to use my body. And this is the same with Ouija boards. I will just touch on this really quick, because Ouija boards, pardon me, that's a gray area for me. You have to know how to use them correctly, because it's an open portal. Anything and everything can and will come through. And chances are, if you don't know what you're doing, if you're an amateur and you don't know what you're doing, those low vibe entities, and we're talking like the demonics, okay, those are the ones that are going to come through. That's that lower energy. So you have to know how to use this board, how to set those boundaries, make sure that that board is blessed, okay, and be able to, and know this is who we're calling in. This is who I'm talking to, nobody else, right? Nobody else gets to come through. And if something, because sometimes they will try, if something tries to, you just, goodbye, right? Nope, goodbye. That boundary's set. Nope, goodbye. So yes, so back to the demonics. So with the demonics, we have different types. There is no, you know, one type of demonic. They're all different types, but they all kind of have the same desire, okay? And that is to feed off of you. They're parasitic, and they will feed off of you, and they will come in and they will attack. They'll come in and they will first go to who is the most vulnerable. So this could be, you know, a child, because they're easily terrified of pretty much everything. So it's going to be someone who is either a child or is going through, you know, mental illness, like they're really in the mental illness, not just that they have it, but they're going through it, right? They're already going through it. They're going to come for the trauma. They're going to come for, you know, those who are in grief, right? Anything, or is someone who's, you know, just even toxic, right? You get those toxic people. They're going to target those ones, because those are the ones that they can feed off of. And the purpose of that is so that they get stronger, right? They're parasitic. They just want to, and they can use, and if they have a couple of different things that they want to do. So they're feeding off of you. You'll go into, if they attach, which is horrific, you'll go into oppression. Okay, and that's when you're really going to be picking up on all of their ick, right? This is when you're going to get really, really depressed, all, you know, like severe depression. They're going to bring you right down. You're going to get angry. You're going to feel a ton of just rage for no reason at all. Okay, like all of that really heavy, low vibe crap is what they want to bring you down to. And the reason they do this, not only does it make them more powerful because they're feeding off of that, but their goal is to possess. They want to take over your vessel. Okay, and part of that is, and this again is just my experience. So, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay, so this is part of again, this is based off of my experience. So they come in, they want to possess and break you down. They physically will break you down. So first they're going to go after you emotionally and mentally, and then if they can get in, they break you down physically. Okay, and in between that oppression and possession, if they bring you down low enough and you aren't able to, you know, get that cord pulled out or what have you, if they take you to the place of, because they will try to get you to complete suicide, because they can use your soul's energy. Again, that's just based off of my own experience and what I've seen with others. So they want to, because they can use, you're kind of like, because you're pure energy, right? That soul is just pure energy. And so it's like a battery to them, and they can use it. And then it's a whole, they break you down, it's a whole, and then they can use you as like, you know, they kind of twist it, they twist you, and they can make you sort of like a malevolent spirit, right? Like they try to build an army. It's a whole thing that I won't get into too much right now, because this was only supposed to be an hour and we're already kind of getting there. So, so yeah, if they get into possession, this is where they start to break you down physically, and this is where they can actually kill you of their own volition, right? It's no longer a matter of, I'm trying to get you to do it, you know, I'm trying to get you to complete suicide. Now I'm just going to kill you. And then through that, that's where that, you know, they can suck out your soul, and that's the whole thing. Okay, so they're incredibly dangerous. They can appear as, they will often appear as children. So you have to have discernment between what's a human child spirit and what's a demonic that's pretending to be human, or, you know, to be a child, to be a human child looking for help. Okay, you see this in the Sally house. I did a video on it a while back on the Sally house, but that's really what, there were two different spirits there. There was a human spirit that was getting used by a demonic, right? Then that's trapped there by the demonic. And then the demonic itself pretending to be that same child so that it could be endeared, because then you want to bring it in, because that's a big thing, is if you give this thing permission, pretty much game over. Good luck getting rid of that thing. Do not, I cannot stress this enough, if you take nothing else away from this class, do not give demonics permission, ever. Do not ever say, bring it on, when if you find, oh, I have a demonic in here, right? Never, ever, ever provoke. Never tell it, bring it on, because that's an invitation. Never say, take me, not, you know, whoever else it's attacking. I know if you have a child that's, you know, being attacked, it's incredibly difficult to see them go through that. But if you give this thing permission, game over, right? Good luck getting rid of that thing. It's going to kill you if you do not get professional help. And even then, it can take months, and it can still end in your death. Okay, we saw this with Annalise Michelle, just as an example. She had severe mental health issues and all kinds of other health issues, which is why she was targeted, because she was vulnerable. So you're also going to have that as well. I meant to mention that when it comes to the vulnerable thing, that they can also come after those who are physically, like, just unhealthy, like they're physically ill, right? Maybe they have like a disease or something, right? Or those who are, what do I want to say? You know, like say wheelchair bound or what have you, like they don't have control over their physical body, right? And so they're just very vulnerable. So yeah, so if you give this thing permission, it could still, even with professional help, even with demonologists and priests and, you know, mediums and all that, you could have, you know, guardian angels and all that jazz coming in and trying to pull this thing out. If you've given it permission, it's pretty much, yeah, it's not going anywhere. It's unlikely. Anyways, it can be done. It's been done, but it's something that often takes a great deal of time. This is not like a one and done. Okay, It may appear that way, but it is more than likely you can weaken it, or it can pretend to be gone, so that you let your shields down, you let your guard down, and then boom, it's got you again, right? Okay, so these things are going to try to scare the hell out of you. Okay, and this is where that poltergeist activity can come through, to be able to have that discernment between, is this demonic or is this a poltergeist entity that I've created? Okay, and the demonic is going to use everything and anything at its disposal. It's by far more powerful than a human spirit. So even if you have a human spirit that's able to do little things, like they might be able to do a little bit of poltergeist activity, right? They might be able to move something just a tiny bit, but that's usually going to drain their batteries for quite some time. So with the demonic, though, they're incredibly powerful. They're going to have that poltergeist activity. They're going to be moving things around, chucking things at you. They're going to push you. They're going to bite you. They're going to scratch you. They're going to burn you. They can infiltrate your dreams and try to trick you that way. What about thought forms? Thought forms are kind of, in my experience anyways, are like tulpas. So thought forms are something that you've put, it's kind of like that poltergeist activity in the sense of, or like poltergeist entity, in that you've created it, or a group of people have. So you can have, I forget what, where it was, but there's like this famous haunted place that I just can't think of it right now, where a story has been told. Well, this is probably in a few places, but there's one in particular that comes to mind, where a story had been told so many times over and over and over that it created the thing. The thing wasn't there before. It was created that way. And that's kind of like a thought form. That's my understanding of a thought form. No, I didn't talk on demonologist. Yeah, no, it's fine. But it is good to have that, to know the difference, that with thought forms, those are typically, it's going to be something that you either created because you put energy into it, or, and more often than not, it's a group effort. So, and it's a story that's been told over and over and over. And that's kind of what has created the thing, right? So you can create something that is like a demonic entity or a human, what have you, or an elemental even. It depends on the story that's being told over and over and over. So you also want to make sure that if you're going to do an investigation, that you have your research. You want to know your research for sure. And if it doesn't show up in the research, yeah, I probably wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into it. Unless you have something like a psychic ability that's going like, no, it is there, right? So you also want to have that. Okay, so the demon stuff though. So yeah, so they're going to do everything they can to attack you, and they're going to do everything they can to bring you down. They want to take you down to like that dark night of the soul, and they don't want to let go. Okay, so you want to be aware of that too. So if you find that you have, that have that just rage, it's not even just like, oh, I'm a little angry today, or I'm a little like annoyed. No, it's like rage, like you could punch your child out, like you're just for like or your spouse or whatever, like you're just for no reason. You could just be like, oh, we're out of milk, bam, just like, just want to punch somebody, or just that rage out of nowhere, right? And another thing to keep in mind is if you remove yourself from the property and you're no longer feeling that way, you're no longer feeling depressed, or you're no longer feeling that anger, that's a ding ding. Okay, that's letting you know, there's something in my space, right? Now, there are some, again, going back to the attachments, where you can have a haunting that's attached to you. So it doesn't matter where you go. So if you have a demonic that's attached to you, it doesn't matter where you go. They will, they follow you. You could go to a hotel room, you can move to another apartment or house, doesn't matter, it's going to be haunted because you're haunted, right? Or if you have a human attachment, I found that, again, there could be a cord there. So there's a connection. You've made a connection with this human spirit, and now they're attached to you. In other, more often than not, the attachment is going to be someone that you knew. Okay, so you do also want to have that discernment between what's a spirit guide and what's an earthbound spirit of someone that you knew. Because I had this one client who, well, I mentioned it earlier. So there was one that he had the spirit, the person had completed suicide, and then he attached to his ex-girlfriend, who he was in communication with at the time that he was going through all of this. So at the time when he was going through all this major depression and addiction, he was in contact with her, and she was sort of like his, not his counselor, but like his person, right? The person that he was talking to about all this stuff. And so when he completed suicide, he attached to her. And I asked both of them, do you want help with this? Like, do you want, you know, do you want me to open a portal? Do you want to cross over? Do you need some, you know, counseling type of help? Or even for her to say, hey, do you need help with this boundary, setting up a boundary and saying, hey, you know, I miss you, and, you know, and all of that, but this is not good for us, right? And they both said no. They were both, she was happy to have him there, even though she knew he was earthbound and that he was going to continue to affect her energy, at least on a subtle level anyways, but she felt comforted by having him there. And he was comforted by her, right? Because that was his person, right? That's the person he turned to when, you know, things were not good for him. So, and that was kind of, sadly, that was the end of that story. Neither one of them wanted help. So you can't force it. You can't make them do anything you want them to do. So, yeah, so again, it didn't matter where she went. She was haunted and was apparently glad for it. So, yeah, so, okay, I know we're hitting that 1 hour thing, and I'm still not even close. Okay, so yeah, we did the do nots. So with the do nots, do not ever give a demonic permission to make contact, you know, and to make contact or to come into your body, big no bueno. Okay, so yeah, no, and making sure that you have those boundaries set. This is who's gonna, you know, here's who can come through, here's who cannot. If something tries to come through, because those lower vibe energies will try, especially if your boundaries are a little, right? They will try to come through, and you're just, nope, goodbye. No. Some tools that you can do to help yourself too. I like to use black tourmaline or black obsidian. Those are my go-tos. So you can have those stones on you. That also helps. Those are protective stones. So that's going to keep out the gross, the yuck. Okay. You can do shielding, like we had mentioned in the psychic one, where you put up that shield, and that again is going to be about the strength of your intention and your will and your boundaries. And excuse me. And that can be something that's a muscle you may need to build. If you don't already have really strong boundaries, if your boundaries are just with people, just like everyday people, right? If your boundaries are a little shaky, your shield is going to be shaky. Okay. So you want to really work on building up those boundaries and strengthening, you know, if you say, hey, this is what you know, this is what I say goes, kind of deal, right? Making sure people aren't walking all over you, or if they try to, say, hey, not cool, man, I'm not allowing that, right? Absolutely not. So you have and then you can also have a ring of salt. So salt is also really good. It's a purifying thing. So you can have salt. Tobacco is also one. It's kind of like that salt thing where it's meant to be like a purifying type of thing. You can also use sage. There are different types of sage that I'm not great with all of the different kinds. I just use white sage. Now, white sage really just clears out, and you can use your intention, but it's going to clear out just energy, right? It's any that's like stagnant or residual energy. Oh, I meant to talk about residuals. Shoot. Okay, so you have that residual energy too. So just as I'm mentioning it really quick, a residual haunting is one that's on repeat. The spirit is not actually there. Okay, it's just something it's like a tape just playing over and over and over. It's not intelligent. It's just energy that's just kind of stuck there. You can clear that out using sage and whatnot. But yeah, so there's an intelligent haunting where you're able to communicate, right? And then you have your residual, which is just energy repeating. Okay. And okay. And so then you can also use, there's an old, in lore anyways, you can use iron as a way also to keep out like the negative stuff. So you can use, so you have like iron nails, or some people who have come across them somehow, I don't know how, railroad spikes, anything that's iron. So it could be an iron knife. They used to have those way back in the day. They would hide those, they would bury those under their, what is that, like the entrance to their door, right? Like under their stairs or what have you. Or they used to have the horseshoe. It used to be an iron horseshoe that you would put up that would, before it was a good luck charm, it was actually there to keep out negative yuck, right? To keep out the demonics and all the bad stuff, right? So iron's a good one too. Or you can just put up, if you find that you have you've gotten really strong in shielding, you can put a shield up around your space, okay, to keep out the yuck, right? And you can do a filtering thing where you're saying, okay, we're keeping out all the yuck, but I'm allowing all the light in. I allow the light in, but I block out the darkness, or whatever your intention is, okay? Now you could also use, so there are different kinds of sage, as I said. So there are some sages you can use that will clear out, specific types of energy. White sage is really more general in my experience. It just kind of takes out, all that stagnant stuff. You can also use, I was just going to say Palo Santo. I was just about to say that. Yep. Palo Santo is also specifically for clearing out that negative energy, or that low vibe type of energy. In my experience anyways, Palo Santo is really more specifically, like, you can use sage to clear out residual and just stuck energy, whereas Palo Santo is specific. It's holy wood. That's what it means. It's holy wood. So it's meant to clear that out, the negative stuff. On that same sort of wave, you can use blessed oil or blessed water as well. And just to be clear with this, because some people sell this stuff, or they feel like they have to go to a priest or whatever to get this, like, holy water, holy oil. All that it really is you pray over it. I make my own because it's just prayed over. You're putting your energy into it. So whether you're a priest or just a person, right? Just someone who's not, ordained in any kind of way, you're putting your energy into it. That's all it really is. So, because I don't want to get too, again, I know I'm starting to go over. So it's already been an hour. So not to get too theological or what have you, we're all, okay. So if we're looking at awakening stuff, and maybe this is something you already believe, but if you've gone through awakening, then you already know we're all God, right? We are all that God consciousness, okay? And so you don't have to be an ordained priest or minister or, man of God or a nun, right? We all have that ability to put that energy into something like an oil or a water, okay? And if there's some kind of belief there that's saying, oh, that doesn't sound right, use a clearing statement. You can say, anywhere I've bought and sold the idea that you have to be a priest to create holy water, holy oil, I uncreate and destroy across all times, dimensions, space, and reality. Boom, right? And I can write that down if you guys need me to, because I know I said it really fast. I'm used to saying it, so it's just right there. Okay, but you do have that ability, because we are all that God energy. Okay, we are all that consciousness energy. We're all Shiva. Okay, so you can also make it yourself. You do not need to buy it from someone else. Okay, and you can use those things. So I know I'm going over, so I won't get into portals right now. If you want me to talk about portals, I can do that in another time, because I don't want to go. I know last time I went like a whole, I was over a half an hour over, so I don't want to do that to you guys. But because there are things that there are different types of portals that tap into the different dimensions and are going to bring in different entities, right? And okay, I don't mind if you go over. Okay. So you have these different portals, and portals can be man-made. They can be made from natural materials. So this is when you have your, you're going to be near water, like running water. Okay. You're going to have your limestone or your quartz crystals. Those are like naturally made. Those are naturally generating portals. Your man-made portals are the ones where you're using tools such as a Ouija board to just, because that's a portal. Anytime that you're inviting something in, you're creating a portal. And if you don't know how to create a specific, like that boundary, you're setting that and saying, this is what I'm allowing in, you're going to open up portals to anything and everything. They're going to come in from all the different dimensions. Okay. You have those multi-dimensionals that can come in from anywhere. Okay. And usually they're going to be that lower vibe energy. So they could be demonic. They could be ultra terrestrial that want to come in and do harm, because there are different types of ultra terrestrials as well. And some of them are high vibe, some of them are low vibe. Okay. Same with the elementals. Some are high vibe, some are low vibe. You have to have that yin and yang, that balance, right? Good and evil, helpful and harmful. Okay. So anything and everything will come through if you don't know what you're doing. It's the same with when you're just saying, you know, I want to communicate. If you're just, you know, like, oh, I just want to practice, so I'm just going to communicate, right? Don't do that. Okay. Make sure that you're very clear. Have your intention set and your boundary set. This is who I want to communicate with, right? So I want to communicate with my higher self. I want to communicate with the helpful and light energy guardians. Okay. Make sure that you have that clear. Same with when you're using tools such as tarot or oracle cards, anything that you're communicating through. So that could be your pendulum even. Okay. Make sure that you have clear intentions, will, and boundaries for when you're bringing these in, because you will create, you'll create these portals. And if you don't know how to shut them down, whew, they can be really, really gnarly depending on what comes through. Okay. And okay, so depending on what is generating this portal, okay, some can be shut down and some are going to be a little more difficult, if impossible. So I have this one client who happens to be near a river, right? She lives right on the river. Could not close that portal down because it's made by the earth. I can't shut that down. It's running water, right? Could not shut that down. Now, so what I did my very best to do is to put some shielding around her space as best I could. We put some, you know, we're using different stones to create like a grid. So you can put different stones in like the corners or above door frames specifically, or you can put salt above or below your door frames, your windows, to try and keep out yucky stuff. There is also, for some reason, a portal. She lives in a building and there's a portal up in that building that no matter what I did, could not shut that sucker down, because it wasn't, I think whoever created it was feeding it. Okay, so there's that too. If you're in an apartment building or something like, or you know, something where there's other people living in that space, you can close down that, you can try your very best to close down that portal. But if they're opening it and feeding it, all you can do is shield yourself as best you can. You're not going to shut it down. Okay, so ones that you make, you can shut that down with your intention and your boundaries. Okay, that is scary. It is scary because you don't know what's coming through. Anything and everything can come through. If this person, especially if this person, okay, I'll mention very quickly too. If you have someone who is working with dark magic, okay, they are creating low energy, those darker portals intentionally. Okay. And so these can be to differentiate. There's a difference between your Satan worshiper, right? Your satanic Luciferian type of worshiper, and then your devil worshipers. There's a big difference, okay? Or even if you're just dabbling in black magic, just in itself, you're not like trying to get your power from a demonic. You want to have that that energy yourself, and you're dabbling in all that dark intentions and putting all that psychic attacks and what have you. You're going to create dark portals. Those entities, those darker, lower vibe entities are going to come at you because you're inviting them. Even if you're not like saying, hey, demon, I want to use your power, come here, right? You're saying, I'm invoking all of this dark, yucky stuff. They're going to take that as an invitation. They're going to go, yep. And they're going to go, and they're going to suck onto you. They're going to just get right onto you. And they're going to feed off of that. In that case, they won't necessarily attempt to bring you down because you're doing the work, right? If you're dabbling in that darker stuff, you're doing the work and you're feeding them by doing that. So they don't need to break you down. You're working, you know? So, okay. Well, where was I before I went off on that tangent? Like I said, I get all excited and I'm like super passionate about this stuff and I talk too fast. Okay. So if you're the one that opened this portal, like if you're aware, you're like, oops, I opened a portal, or yep, I did that intentionally, right? So you can close it down with your intention and your boundaries. You can also do this through energy work, okay? Which is kind of the same thing as doing the intention. Everything's energy. So you can do that with energy work. So you can even you can put it in your hands, depending on the size of it, right? Sometimes you get these big portals, okay? And then you can try to shrink them down, right? You're using your intention and your healing energy, and you're going to shrink it down. You're going to shrink it down, okay? And then you can kind of close that up and be like, okay, closing it up. I often will use blessed water or blessed oil. That's when I'll bring out the Palo Santo, right? Make sure that sucker's closed, right? You can even close it in your palms, right? It's closed. You can check with your pendulum too to see if it's open or closed. So if it's open, chances are it's going to swing, and if it's closed, it should just not. It shouldn't move. Okay. Okay, so you can close it down. Sometimes I mentioned to you really quickly that portals can be created through mirrors. So either like a front facing, like just a mirror that you're looking at, especially if you're doing some kind of scrying, that's a portal, boom, open. Okay, you ask the pendulum to let you know if it's open. Typically they'll just go because it's energy, and it'll just grab the portal because it moves, right? It circles. And so the pendulum will just pick it up. They'll pick up on that energy and it'll just go. So when it's closed, it should not move. So when you have a mirror, if you're scrying through it, you're opening a portal. So again, that's just another tool. It's like the Ouija board or your tarot cards, your pendulum. It's just a tool if you're scrying through that. You can also create portals intentionally or unintentionally when you have like what is that called? And the mirror is, you have two mirrors facing each other. Then you have that like infinity thing. Reflections. It's kind of like, well, I'll say this really quick. So you can use reflections, or it's also the reason why people use crystal balls. Anything that really you're focusing your attention into in order to, like a tool, right? Like that you're trying to use for any form of communication. So that could be even just, trying to be aware of future timelines, right? So you might be doing like a precog thing, right? So that's sort of a form of a one-pointed meditation, because you're focused in on one thing and being open to receiving from there. When you have something like a mirror, a reflection, or a crystal ball, something like that, where you're focused in on that, it could be a flame even. I've used that too. So you have like the candle flame, like we have in my background here. You're focused in on one thing, and that's going to open this up, right? That third eye is going to open up. And that's where you're going to get your clairaudient, your clairvoyance. Those are the ones that are really going to come through. So typically, if you're looking at a reflection or a crystal ball, something like that, you're not looking with your physical eyes to see the future. you're looking at it as a focal point, and you're going to see it here. You're going to see it in your third eye, in that pineal gland. Okay. So you can use reflections. So you have black glass or reflections like that. So, but you don't want anything where, specifically with mirrors, in my experience anyways, where you get that infinity type of reaction from the mirror to mirror. That opens portals, and anything and everything will come through. Multi-dimensionals are going to come through. Okay, so you want to make sure that's not there. That's also one of the reasons why people, I don't know, some people might still do it, but back in the old days, people would put material over their mirrors, especially when there's been a death in the house, because they were afraid of portals entrapping souls. Okay. So there's always that too. So depending on what the reflection is, right, you can always put something up like a curtain or something. It's also why with crystal balls as well, you might put something over, like a material over the crystal ball when you're done, right? So to kind of, I mean, you want to have that intention of closing that portal just anyways, but then you want to make sure that nothing's coming through by placing something over it. Okay. Okay. So I went through that. Okay. Yeah, an attraction. Okay, I think I hit all of the points I wanted to make. Because again, I know I went really fast. Was there, did you, we started off by asking, did you have any questions? And at that point it was no. Since then, do you have any other questions? Anything, either mediumship or in regards to haunting stuff? Any of that jazz? Get some sip of water here. No, doesn't look like it. Okay. Okay, is there anything else that you needed me to be, like I said, I know we're over, so, but is there anything you need me to be more clear on? I might add some notes in the group because like I said, I know I can go too fast. So I want to make sure there are certain things that, you know, get explained properly. Okay. No, okay. Okay, yeah, no, you're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. I love talking about this stuff. Honestly, I can go for hours. Like if this was something where we're like, you know, I could block off a full day. Literally, I can just go. Like I wrote a book because I could just go. So, yeah, so, all right. Well, you're very welcome and my absolute pleasure. I will end the recording in a moment here. I hope you have a great rest of your day, your evening, and I will see you in the group. Okay. Bye, guys.